In the North Atlantic, a massive bulk carrier suddenly snaps in two.
This happened very, very quickly, literally at the speed of sound.
25 men are in a fight for their lives.
It was so scary. The ship was definitely going to sink.
Why? Did we lose so many people? Why in the first place would this ship even break in two?
The search for answers will lead to the bottom of the ocean
Well, look at that.
and a string of mysterious sinkings around the world.
All of these are bulk carriers.
No one knows what happened to those vessels.
That's insane.
They just disappeared.
Winter in the North Atlantic, and the 180-meter bulk carrier Flare is heading west.
Bulk carriers are designed to do heavy lifting and heavy work. Throughout their lifetime, they carry very dense, heavy cargoes, and they trade all over the world.
Chief, increasing speed to 12 knots.
Aboard is the captain and 24 crew. They've just come out of a powerful winter storm, and another is on its way.
Hold course.
Holding course.
23-year-old Cyrus Ferrarin is at the helm. New to the ship, he signed on just a week before departure.
Ang position ko doon sa MV Flare.
My job on the Flare was the able-bodied seaman. I was in charge of the manual steering on the ship. I wanted to be a sailor because my uncle was a sailor. And when I was a kid, he was always coming home from his trips, happy and with lots of money. That's why I thought I'd like to do it too.
Masaya, maraming pera. Ganun, na-joke ako na, magseaman ako.
The Flare is more than halfway on an approximate 6,000-kilometer voyage from Rotterdam to Montreal to pick up a cargo of grain. The bulk carrier is equipped with massive cranes that can fill its 7 holds with almost 38,000 cubic meters of cargo. Right now, the holds are empty. Below deck, 4th Engineer Romarlo Napa is busy helping with repairs to one of the ship's ballast tanks.
We were actually inside the topside tank. It took us almost a whole day to work on the issue with the welder.
Like Cyrus, Romarlo is also new to the ship. Weeks earlier, when they joined the crew, they were welcomed by a ship's veteran, Tito Noses.
He was really helpful from the moment we came on board.
I was still young, and he was there to teach me. He's just the kind of guy he was.
The Flare is heading for the Canadian shipping channel, the Cabot Strait. It's an area known for bad weather.
Chief, decreasing speed to 5 knots.
Captain Chris Hearn is a master mariner from Newfoundland. He knows how rough these seas can get.
The Cabot Strait is between two land masses that have weather patterns that are different. So this faster moving water on top of slower moving water, building all this energy, and whips the waves up very high.
The crew secures the lifeboats to keep them from being torn from the ship during the storm.
The waves were strong, and the wind was loud. You could really hear it.
Marinig mo talaga yung hangin. Blow ng hangin. Malakas.
Keep her on the starboard bow.
The ship is not loaded, and she's more exposed to the elements and to storms. That ship was slamming and pounding. You can feel that vibration because the energy has to travel along the length of the hull.
You could actually see the ship bending in the big waves.
The bending and twisting can be an unnerving experience, but Flare was built to handle this.
All ships are designed to flex, and particularly really long ships. She's flexing and moving all the time.
The waves are reaching 9 meters high, as tall as a 3-story building.
Kasabang talaga.
It was really loud when the waves splashed on the
In
bridge.
front ng bow part ng barko.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
At 2 a.m., Cyrus's shift is over. He heads below to try and get some rest, but in a storm like this, it won't be easy.
Hindi ka naman makatulog kasi
You couldn't sleep because of the waves and the weather.
rough weather. Hindi ko
I
lang
couldn't see it, but I could feel it shaking and slamming.
slamming talaga yung ano niya.
It's overspeeding too much. Hold it.
In the engine room, where Marlowe and his assistant struggle to keep the ship's engine from burning out.
Wala na kaming ginawa araw-araw.
We had to constantly adjust the speed of the engines from low speed to high speed, because when the ship goes through the waves, the stern tends to rise up out of the water.
Siyempre, ang tendency ng barko, tataas ang puwet.
As the vessel is slamming up and down as it's moving through these waves, sometimes the propeller is partially exposed. And when they come out of the water, there's no resistance. That overspeed can damage your engine.
O yun lang ang ginawa namin, doon kami nagtatalo.
We couldn't take our eyes off the engines for a second. It was like that the whole shift.
Talagang wala kang alisan doon. 4 na oras yung duty mo, 12 to 4.
Suddenly, around 4:30 in the morning,
Malakas na pagbaw.
There was a loud bang. What happened? Did we hit something? Then the alarm went off.
Nag-ano na, nag-ring na yung alarm.
Abandon ship! We're sinking! Wait!
I'm coming!
Your life jackets now!
Kumatok siya sa pintuan ko tapos sabi
Someone banged on my door and told me to put on my life jacket.
life jacket. Tapos
I put on 2 pairs of pants and 3 pairs of socks.
3 medyas. Nahirapan na nga ako umakyat sa taas kasi
I had a hard time with the stairs because the ship was tilting.
outside, it's freezing, and the crew is terrified. Most aren't even dressed for the cold.
Pero si Rimarlo,
I saw Rimarlo, and he was in his pajamas. No socks, just his pajamas and a t-shirt.
at saka t-shirt.
It's not just the cold they're worried about. It's the shock of what's right in front of them. The entire front half of the ship is gone.
Their ship is just broken in half. It's almost too impossible to believe.
Tapos yung iba iba-iba ng
I could see my crewmates were terrified. Some were crying, others were praying.
yung nagdasal sa akin, nagdasal ako.
Sobrang takot na
It was so scary because we all saw that the ship was definitely going to sink. The only thing we could do then was figure out how to survive.
Ang iisipin mo na lang doon kung paano ka makasurvive.
25 men are trapped on a broken ship that's going down fast. The question now, can any of them survive the icy ocean that awaits them? The massive 180-meter bulk carrier flare has broken in half. The ship's 25 crew are in a desperate fight for their lives. They're trapped on the stern, and it's sinking fast.
Kasi ano-ano.
It was just chaos. Everyone was in a panic.
The captain was nowhere to be seen. We assumed he had already gone over the side. So we just went ahead on our own. We made for the lifeboat, but we couldn't get it to launch.
Parang na lifeboat, hindi na namin magawa.
They had put additional lashings on the lifeboat to try and prevent it from being lost during the storm. and they can't get the lashings to release. The crew are struggling with life and death.
We kept asking each other, what are we gonna do?
Unable to launch the lifeboats, all eyes turned to the ship's radio operator.
We asked him if he called the SOS.
They're stunned to hear no call has been sent.
At least if he'd called, there might be a possibility we'd be rescued.
Desperate, the radio operator races back to the bridge in a last-ditch effort to make the call.
The stern section is sinking and it's listing, so the radio officer has to make his way up, holding on to the ladders and up the stairwells to try and get to the bridge. The fact that he managed to do it at all is amazing. At the MCTS, the traffic station in Stephenville, they received a very faint, incomplete mayday by VHF, very high frequency radio.
Canadian authorities launch a massive hunt for the flare. But with only partial coordinates, the search area is enormous.
Ships, fixed-wing aircraft, and helicopters over an area of 6,000 square nautical miles to try and find where the flare is or was, and where hopefully some survivors might be.
Just after the mayday, crew members are still clinging to the railings as the ship goes down.
Tito, me, and the other guys, we were all on one side of the ship. We were all together just hanging on to the rails. We were really scared. Then I saw Tito let go of the railing.
Moments later, the rest of the crew have no choice but to follow. They jump just as the stern goes under.
The physical shock of that kind of cold water is unbelievable. It completely takes your breath away.
Gasping for air, Cyrus sees an overturned lifeboat. It's his only hope.
Masakit kasi yung paglangoy.
The water was cold. It was really painful and hard to swim.
It was really cold. But what made me even more scared than that is we were off the ship. We were in the water.
Yun na nga, wala na kami sa barko. Nasa tubig na kami lahat.
There was some rope on top of the lifeboat, and I grabbed onto it.
Kumapit muna ako doon sa lifeboat.
The other guys were all hunched and curled up because of the cold.
Maluktot na yung tayo nila dahil sa sobrang lamig.
Cyrus, Romarlo, and 2 others have made it to the lifeboat. But with temperatures below freezing, just how long can they last?
Hypothermia sets in. You start to lose the ability to use your fingers and be able to move your arms and legs.
2 other crewmen also make it to the lifeboat, the radio operator and Romarlo's engine room assistant. They try, but they can't hold on to the overturned hull.
I just didn't have enough strength to pull him up to the lifeboat. I told him, I'm really sorry. We have to go our own separate ways.
Kasi wala na rin akong lakas para siya. Kaya ito naman 2 kong kasama at 3 kasama sa taas.
Drifting in the bitter cold, their chances seem hopeless. Then suddenly, they see the bow of a ship. It appears to be coming their way.
Oh, yung isa naming kasama na nagsabi na, may ano na.
One of us even said, we were rescued.
We all hugged each other, my companions and I, and said, we're alive. The rescuers are here. I couldn't believe it.
Hindi ako mapaniwala, nagulat ako.
Then, as the vessel comes closer, they discover it's not a rescue ship. It's the flare's broken bow, still afloat.
The flare broke in such a way that the watertight bulkheads were still intact. So now we've got these empty spaces that are helping this bow section stay afloat. It must have been an incredibly eerie situation.
Nabuhayan kami ng loob lahat.
We were all so hopeful, but when we figured out that it was just the forward part of the ship, that's when our hope was lost.
Nawala na naman ang pag-asa.
Delta Victor, that is a negative on any contact. I repeat, negative on contact.
By sunrise, the search has yet to find any trace of the ship or possible survivors. Search and rescue technicians Tony Isaacs and Paul Jackman know it's a bad sign.
We know it's cold, and we're in the North Atlantic, and there's people out there that are going to need us. Whether they're in a life raft, in the water, or on a boat, it's going to be cold.
It was daylight, so we were kind of wondering why they haven't been found yet, because it's a fairly big asset on the water. So it was kind of troubling that nobody has seen anything yet.
After more than 5 hours in the frigid water, the men are fading fast.
I prayed to the Lord. I said, please, give me a chance to see my family again.
Para makita ko yung pamilya ko, makita yung magiging anak ko.
Then, on the horizon, the search team spots something.
Look! Target, 2 o'clock!
Incredibly, the flare's bow section is still floating. The wreckage is found, but can the search team locate any survivors before their time runs out? Nearly 6 hours after receiving an incomplete Mayday call, rescuers have spotted the flare's bow section adrift in the North Atlantic.
We saw the bow quite a ways away, because obviously it was quite large.
The waves were crashing around, and to me it was sort of kind of a little eerie. Out the right side of the aircraft, we could see the oil slick.
There's no sign of anyone on board, but experience tells them if there are survivors, they won't be far away.
We had a fairly defined debris line, so we just followed that down, flying in a very slow hover.
Moments later, we could see the overturned boat. 4 people barely clinging to it, and one of them just barely raising his hand.
We heard a helicopter. We all started saying, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it.
Sabi ko nga sa kanila, buhay na tayo, nandito na rescuer.
When I got to the lifeboat, they were all hanging on to ropes, and were very reluctant to let go of that rope.
Tony's belly to belly when they're hoisting up and coming through the door.
One by one, the survivors are lifted to safety.
It was basically, I gotcha, and we're gone. When I brought the final survivor up, and he's basically wearing like boxer shorts, I was amazed because I actually thought that he's wearing pants or something. But no, that's what this guy's wearing. That's how tough he was. And that he managed to survive 6 hours in North Atlantic on the 16th of January, wearing almost nothing.
After 6 hours in the deadly cold, Cyrus, Romarlo, and 2 others are lucky to be alive. They're taken to the nearby island of St. Pierre for emergency medical attention.
The next thing I knew, we were being wheeled off the helicopter. There were ambulances there.
Mga rescuer. Yun.
One of the rescuers gave me the patch from his uniform. I was very thankful to him.
Kaya nagpasalamat ako sa kanya na
It was my second life.
pangalawang buhay ko.
While the crew receives medical attention, the search team scours the area for another day. But no other survivors are found. 21 men are dead. For the family of Tito Noses, the news comes as a terrible shock.
So very hard, but we need to be strong because I know he sacrificed a lot for our children. As a child, I asked like, why are you crying? And then she told me that, your dad already passed away. I just knew that my dad died in an accident, but not knowing how it happened.
As the flare's bow continues to drift at sea, investigators with the Transportation Safety Board of Canada launch an investigation to find out what caused the ship to break apart and why so many crewmen died.
Okay, gentlemen, got some aerial footage of the incident here.
The first thoughts are, of course, to the crew. Your mind goes to what could have happened.
It was pretty remarkable when we heard the details of what had happened to the vessel. I guess it's surreal that you've got this half a ship sort of drifting along.
Why did we lose so many people? Why aren't there more survivors? Why in the first place would this ship even break in two?
Investigator Leo Donati has come to Newfoundland to join former sea captain Bill McConey, the investigator in charge.
Let's see what these guys can tell us.
They're hoping the survivors can tell them what caused the wreck.
Take us through what you saw on the ship that day.
You want to interview survivors as soon as possible because our memories aren't static. They can change over time.
We were in very high waters the whole time.
They find out the ship faced 2 weeks of nearly constant extreme winds and heavy seas.
We couldn't eat, we couldn't sleep.
The waves, they are very big.
Their testimony is backed by weather reports of waves as high as 16 meters, the height of a 5-storied building.
The ship is bending like this.
You capture as much information as you can. Really trying to get a clear picture of all the facts, all the details. What did you see? What did you hear?
Was there any sort of sound omitted when this happened?
It's like a big boom!
During the night of the accident, they heard a really loud bang. Clearly, that's when the vessel split apart.
Survivors heard the same ear-splitting sound, but none of them saw what caused it.
How can a ship that big simply break in half?
That's what we're here to find out.
Investigators have a deadly mystery on their hands. They also have unusual evidence. Imagery of the flare's broken bow taken over a 4-day period before it eventually sank.
Unbelievable. You definitely need to take a closer look at this.
John Garstang is a mechanical engineer and expert in metal failure analysis. He believes the imagery may hold clues to why the massive ship snapped in half.
You can actually pull out a tremendous amount of information from imagery. Photographs and video are very valuable from an investigative point of view.
It's a really clean fracture.
As he examines the edge of the break, Garstang makes a surprising discovery.
It's almost like I had a knife and a scalpel and I cut quite precisely and it just came apart.
This type of break is known as a brittle fracture.
A brittle fracture is something like how glass breaks. When it breaks, it breaks, but it doesn't deform much, twist or bend. It breaks quickly.
The theory matches the survivors' accounts. But to investigators, it doesn't make sense.
It says here this is made with grade D steel. Which means it's not supposed to snap.
Like many bulk carriers, Flair's deck and upper hull are constructed from fracture-resistant steel. It's made to be flexible, not brittle, so it can bend and twist to absorb the punishment of heavy seas.
This ship has got metal that should be behaving in a ductile manner, absorbing more energy. Something like if I had a piece of licorice and I pulled on it and bent, it would deform, narrow down before it breaks. So we're seeing things that are unexpected that we don't understand.
Doesn't make any sense.
Investigators find themselves with a deeper mystery to solve.
Keep it on the starboard bow.
Why did a ship designed to flex and bend fail when the crew needed it most? The investigation into the breakup of the flare is now focused on the ship's flexible steel structure that should have enabled it to ride out the storm.
How can this ductile material behave brittly? We're still trying to figure this out. There's something else going on.
Looking for answers, investigators examine the ship's history and how it was operated.
The flare was built in 1972. So at the time of the occurrence, it was 26 years old, which for a bulk carrier is probably about 8 years past his normal service life.
Pretty old for a bulk carrier.
Investigator Ken Potter is a marine safety analyst on the team.
Bulk carriers do lead a tough life, and some of the materials they're carrying can be very hard on the vessel. For example, iron ore comes on board in pellets that are often very hot, and they're discharged with big grab buckets that actually can damage the vessel itself. There can be tremendous forces imposed on the hull by heavy cargoes like that stress the ship, sometimes beyond its limits.
The flare has had a long and brutal service life.
Here's something.
What do you got?
It turns out that bulk carriers like Flare also have a deadly history. Over the previous 7 years, a total of 99 bulk carriers were lost, taking with them over 650 lives.
All of these are bulk carriers. That's insane.
The numbers are shocking.
On average, that's roughly one bulk carrier would be lost a month. They would occur so suddenly, sometimes there was no maydays.
The investigators consider a terrifying possibility. Other bulk carriers may also have snapped in half.
No one knows what happened to those vessels. The crew didn't survive. They disappeared.
If they're right, other bulk carriers may be in danger. Searching for a new lead, investigators find one in the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. It's here where the Flare's final voyage began.
We had to talk to the pilot in Rotterdam that had guided the ship out of Rotterdam.
Bill McConney? Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. How can I assist you?
Well,
the role of the pilot is to safely guide the vessel out of port. He was an important source of information.
I know it was a while ago.
Harbor pilots navigate thousands of ships out of this port each year. But something about the Flare stood out.
The Flare, yes. I do remember the ship. She was empty. Also remember she had a light forward draft on her.
A light forward draft means the bow of the ship floats high out of the water, perfectly safe when seas are calm, but in a storm, it can cause serious problems.
Picture a vessel as a teeter-totter. In this case, a 700-foot-long teeter-totter, and the bow teeter-totters or tips forward into the trough. It comes down with a bang.
Over time, this can damage the ship.
With the continual pounding through the waves, you get bending this way, then bending back that way. Bending this way, bending back that way.
Much like a paper clip being bent back and forth. It can start to fatigue and then crack and fail.
Investigators wonder if Flair's bow was riding too high in heavy seas.
Chief, decreasing speed to 5 knots.
And did the continual pounding ultimately cause it to snap? To reduce stresses to the hull in big waves, seawater is pumped into a ship's ballast tanks. The weight makes it sit lower in the water to provide a smoother ride in the waves.
Keep her on the starboard bow.
Investigators know the Flair left port in an extremely light condition. What they don't know is how much ballast the captain had added to the tanks just before the ship broke in half.
We knew she was empty, so how much ballast, where it was placed, was very important for us to find out.
They come up with an ingenious way to find out.
Look at how the ice is formed.
By looking at images of the Flair's main deck.
You see those square edges?
You can see where there is snow and ice patterns. And that was very valuable to assist us in determining ballast, because if you have water ballast, it contains heat longer than an empty air tank.
A ballast tank full of seawater retains enough heat to melt the snow that lands on its surface. Empty tanks will get colder and allow snow and even ice to build up on the decks above.
There's not enough seawater in these tanks.
You can see on the imagery where there is snow and ice because that tank was most likely empty.
Why go into a storm with empty tanks? It doesn't make sense.
As they search for an answer, something catches their attention. In Flair's last survey, most of the ship's ballast tanks were found to be severely corroded and in need of repair.
In particular, there were some repairs that were being done in some of the upper wing tanks, and that would require them to remove the ballast water in order to effect those repairs.
They'd been given what's known as a condition of class. That is a specific period of time in which they're allowed to continue to sail, but must have the repairs done.
They've only got weeks to get the repairs done.
That's a lot of pressure.
Captain has to think to himself, okay, what is the nature of the repair? Is it dangerous? Like, do I think that I should sail this ship? And in reflection, he makes the decision that we can do this.
With time running out, some repairs were to be done at sea, but the North Atlantic had other ideas.
The weather conditions they experienced, the heavy seas, the storm and near hurricane force winds would have made it very, very difficult to conduct any repairs on the voyage.
It's possible unfinished repairs meant some ballast tanks couldn't be filled and left the already empty ship pounding heavily through raging seas. Did the force of a massive wave simply rip the ship apart? A closer look at Flair's plans shows it was built to take the worst any ocean has to offer.
It was strengthened. Its hull was strengthened to take ore. So this vessel was stronger than other bulk carriers at the time, yet it catastrophically failed while empty.
Searching for answers, investigators dig deeper into the ship's structure.
Maybe there was a problem that we couldn't see on the imagery. So we really are in a position now, you can't answer this unless you get eyes on the wreckage itself and analyze it.
Investigator John Garstang boards the Canadian Coast Guard vessel Earl Grey and ventures out to the sunken wreck of the Flair's bow, about 145 kilometers off the coast of Cape Breton. He has an ROV equipped with a high-resolution video camera to scan the wreckage for clues.
We've only got a limited weather window, and we have to make the best of every minute we've got.
As the ROV goes into the water, Garstang knows this may be the investigation's last chance to find out what caused the Flair to break apart. Investigator John Garstang watch as the ROV descend towards the wreckage of Flair's bow section. Months of investigation hinge on whatever physical evidence he can find.
This is a risky operation because you're going on a wreck and there's cables and twisted metal and everything you can entangle on. We may all of a sudden lose a $100,000 vehicle in addition to accomplishing nothing.
76 meters below the surface, Flair's bow looms into view.
You never do get used to coming up on a wreck out of the dim and dark and then seeing this massive structure. And you cannot help but not be personally affected. Basically, you're at a gravesite, those who didn't make it.
The sunken bow has landed on the seafloor, nearly upside down.
It actually rolled and was upside down to show us the stuff we couldn't see when it was floating.
Okay, move in. Right there.
As the hull fracture comes into view edge on, Garstang sees a series of telltale markings within the thickness of the steel.
To our surprise, we start encountering clamshell marks, which are characteristic or indicative of fatigue cracks.
These small fatigue cracks have an identifiable clamshell pattern that can be caused by the continued flexing of steel over time.
Those lines that make up that series of concentric marks are actually crack arrest lines, where the crack would advance, stop, advance, stop, advance, stop in little increments, so it's slowly growing.
This could be where it all started.
Growing inside the steel, these fatigue cracks were all but invisible to Flair's captain and crew.
Here, there's more.
That we kept finding more cracks, then more cracks. They're small, but those crack patterns and cracks are ticking time bombs. All these cracks are starting getting bigger, joining, eventually joining to the point that they're critical in size. The analogy I could give you with glass, if you just put a thin scratch on the surface of that glass, once you have that, if you then have a shock loading, which is the pounding of the waves, the sudden bending, that combination can then suddenly create a rapid, fast fracture, so rapid that it's catastrophic.
The actual crack on board the Flair would have started and propagated all the way around the hull in fractions of a second, literally at the speed of sound.
6 months after the sinking of the bulk carrier Flair, investigators have found their smoking gun. And signs of corrosion on some fatigue cracks reveal they may have been growing for years.
Maybe it might take a year, 2 years, those cracks slowly progressing, the right circumstances, and then catastrophic failure, as we saw in the Flair.
The Flair's crew didn't know it, but they left Rotterdam on a ship that was already primed to break apart.
Decreasing speed to 5 knots.
The pounding transatlantic voyage weakened it further, before the final storm near the Cabot Strait proved to be the knockout punch.
The ship was inspected, and it passed.
Flair had ultrasonic tests done on its hull, but the deadly fatigue cracks were never detected.
Now it brings into question, who did the inspection? How well is the inspection being done? Maybe it's a person whose equipment isn't what it should be. So this triggers a safety response with urgency. There's other vessels all over the world that may be in danger.
We gotta warn those other ships. Those cracks are like ticking time bombs.
The same type of hidden fatigue cracks that broke the Flair could sink another bulk carrier at any moment. The question now, can investigators get the message out before it's too late? The Flair investigators send an alert to flag states all over the world, warning of the danger posed by fatigue cracks in bulk carriers. The cracks are so small they can easily be missed by inspection.
There's a very large fleet of similar design vessels. Do they have cracks, and we could tell them at locations that we're finding these?
The response is alarming. 14 bulk carriers, similar to Flare, are immediately flagged as high risk.
2 vessels of similar design that come into Canadian waters, one of which was inspected, had cracks like the Flare. If they were not found, just as they were not found in the Flare, the same catastrophic thing could have happened to that vessel. So this was for me personally, and I know with the other team members, this is a big deal.
The need to improve inspections isn't the industry's only wake-up call. The night of the disaster, none of the crew were seen wearing immersion suits when they abandoned ship. The insulated neoprene suits are designed to help victims survive on the open ocean.
It's not uncommon for seamen or crew on ships to actually prepare themselves for an emergency like that. And I will say myself, I have been in situations where I've had my survival suit out of the closet just in case something happened.
Immersion suits are standard issue on Canadian ships, but other countries have different rules.
Thank you for meeting with me.
Chief Investigator Bill McConey travels to Greece to question the Flare's owners.
I'd like to talk to you about the Flare. In particular, I'd like to talk about the number of immersion suits.
There are 6 survival suits on board, as required by law.
25 guys. What are they supposed to do? Draw straws?
It was a bit of a shocker for me to learn that international regulations did not call for survival suits for all of the crew.
We're going to have to work on the law, and I'm hoping that you'll help me out.
With thousands of ships working bitterly cold oceans every day, investigators know the rules have to change, or more seafarers will die.
I'll be in touch.
To make their case, they use data on cold water survival developed for the Canadian military.
We use a computer model that can simulate the various scenarios. We could put information about water temperatures, air temperatures, the type of clothing that was worn, whether or not they had life jackets. Would these individuals have survived? Had they been given immersion suits?
They then compare the predicted survival times with or without a survival suit.
The individuals with lighter clothing would have survived around 2 to 2.5 hours. When we ran the model within immersion suits, survival times increased by 12 to 14 hours.
The results are no surprise. With immersion suits, more of the Flare's crew would probably have survived.
You always hope that you can make a difference. Of course, there's the families too, a closure, like, what happened? Why did this happen?
The investigation and results of the survivability model are presented to the International Maritime Organization, demanding change.
The IMO and the 150 member nations agreed with us, and the rules were changed requiring 1 survival suit per crew member.
Sadly, in too many cases, you need a very tragic event with fatalities to create true change. The Flare is part of a legacy of tragic events.
21 years after the tragedy, Romarlo and Cyrus meet once again. The 2 men survived a trauma they'll never forget, and it changed their lives forever.
My goal was by age 35, I wanted to be a chief engineer because that was my dream. Not anymore. I never went aboard a ship ever again.
Since then, they've enjoyed watching their families grow, but most of their crewmates weren't so lucky.
it should have been avoided. So I'm hoping that after the accident on the flare, the maritime industry should have had a lesson